What's up, everybody? Welcome to Political Fight Club. I'm going to do an episode today on another story that broke with the Daily Poster. Highly recommend you guys subscribe to them. That's David Sirota, Andrew Perez, Walker Bragman, and I think Joel Warner also helped write this particular article I've got here. This dropped yesterday. So this is great journalism, as usual. They dug up that Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin take an inordinate amount of money from PACs that are basically anti-union PACs. And if you guys remember correctly, these were the two people that voted down the minimum wage, two of the 8 that voted down the minimum wage amendment to the ARP that Bernie tried to get done in the Senate. And Kyrsten Sinema is like public enemy number 1 ever since then, because she did that like Hunger Games Effie Trinket like haha fuck the common man with her thumbs down, curtsy cutesy fuck everybody that's poor mannerism there. So what ended up happening is after they voted that down, they ended up getting invitations to a conference of the National Restaurants Association. Now this is a conference that's held for lobbyists and rich people that own these, large restaurant chains, to talk about public relations. That's what this conference is held for. And it was only after Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema voted down the $15 minimum wage that they got their invitations to give speeches. That's the way these powerful corporations pay these politicians and bribe them, is they don't give a fuck about what Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema have to say in a speech at this conference. They just say, hey, we're going to give you some money, and we'll call it speech money, and you guys just come and talk for an hour or whatever, and, do whatever you got to do, and we'll just justify that as giving you money because we're thanking you. This is bribe money for what they just did for those people. Because if you guys know anything about these large corporations that are other than a select few that are restaurant chains, the CEOs don't want to pay $15 minimum wage because they claim that it'll cut into their bottom line, and that's not true, by the way. The CEO from Denny's just came out and said that we've been incrementally raising our minimum wage for a while now, and they're over $15 an hour, and for the last 6 years they've had positive sales but also positive foot traffic. So he's like, it's actually good PR, and it actually has helped us over the last more than half decade to raise our minimum wage to over $15 an hour. But I digress. Most of these people just don't want to pay their workers because they want to pad their own bank accounts. So they pay people like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema to vote things down in Congress. So that's part 1 of the story. Part 2 of the story is even more interesting to me. So Sirota ties this in with the fact that Manchin and Sinema are 2 of the opponents of the filibuster reform, or getting rid of the filibuster. Now, if you guys know anything about politics, the filibuster has to go. Otherwise, the Senate will never actually pass anything, because through regular order, the Republicans always filibuster, which means you need 60 out of the 100 votes to pass anything. You can go around it via budget reconciliation, and I would recommend they try that too, but basically the whole Senate is gridlocked until the filibuster goes, and Manchin and Sinema are against reforming or getting rid of the filibuster. And then, so that means nothing's going to get through, and they have an immense amount of power with the 50-50 split being the 2 most Republican Democrats in the Senate. They have so much leverage, and they're absolutely wielding it wonderfully right now. Now, not for good things, but they know how to use leverage better than the Squad does, for instance. So, as it turns out, most of the money that, or the 7th most amount of money that Kyrsten Sinema gets out of all the lobbyist groups is from union-busting PACs. And that, I have them written down here: Barnes and Thornburg, Cozen O'Connor, Steptoe and Johnson, and Snell and Wilmer. And that's just a few of them right there. These are all firms that are basically like union-busting firms, and they get paid by very large corporations to try to diffuse and quash unions in their, restaurant chains. And lo and behold, Kyrsten Sinema is taking an inordinate amount of money through PACs from these firms. And then Manchin, likewise, Steptoe and Johnson, which I just mentioned, they're the 8th most, abundant source of PAC money for Joe Manchin, Steptoe and Johnson, 8th. So he's getting an inordinate amount of PAC money for campaigning, for getting reelected from these groups that obviously don't want the $15 minimum wage to pass. So this is just bribe money. That's all that Sirota is saying. And as long as they don't vote to reform the filibuster and they keep their positions of power, which I don't see why they would, they're corrupt. They're not going to vote to reform the filibuster. And even if we do things via budget reconciliation, which that's why they don't want that, by the way, because the 50-50 vote is advantageous for these two via budget reconciliation because it makes their votes so much more valuable. You don't have to go get any Republican votes via budget reconciliation. So any bill that comes up that's big has to be done via budget reconciliation, which means their votes are valuable in that situation, which is why they don't want to reform the filibuster. So we need to shine the biggest light on how corrupt these people are. That's why this story is so important. They're taking money via being invited to the National Restaurants Association conference on public relations to give speeches, which I imagine they'll make a lot of money off of. And then, of course, that happened after they already did their job as, paid puppets to go out there and vote down the minimum wage amendment. And then, of course, they're also taking a ton of money from these union-busting PACs. Companies pay these politicians to do their bidding. That's what this story says. So I will leave the link in the comment or in the description box below. I highly recommend you read it. It's a very short read. They do a great job in terms of making things like understandable as well. Another reason why I like the Daily Poster is they break things down in layman terms and keep the jargon to a minimum. So highly recommend you subscribe. Great job again, and I imagine that Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin will be getting Jerks of the Week here pretty soon, probably next week. So keep fighting the good fight out there. I'll try to get you guys an episode later.